I am 82 years old. I have spent over 5 decades inside hospitals, holding the hands of people as they left this world. Nurses are not supposed to cry. That is what they told us in training. Stay professional. Stay composed. Be strong for the patient. I tried. I really tried. But there is something that happens when a human being looks into your eyes in their final moments, something they cannot teach you in any classroom, in any textbook, in any training room with fluorescent lights and plastic chairs. They look at you, and they tell you the truth, not the truth they told their families, not the truth they performed for the world, the real truth, the quiet, desperate, too late truth that only comes out when there is nothing left to lose. I heard that truth thousands of times, and for most of my life, I did not listen. I was too busy, too focused, too certain that I had time to think about these things later. I thought I had time. I was wrong. The first time I truly understood what was happening in those final moments, I was not at a patient's bedside. I was standing in my own kitchen, alone, on a Tuesday evening. My children were grown and gone. The house was quiet in a way that felt less like peace and more like a warning, and I realized something that stopped me completely. I had spent 50 years helping other people face the end of their lives, and I had never once stopped to ask myself how I was living mine. I had been so close to the truth for so long, and I had missed it. That is why I am speaking today. Not because I have all the answers, but because I have stood in a room where answers no longer matter, where the only thing left is regret or peace, and I have seen which one visits most, and I need you to hear this before it is too late for you, because later, I promise you, does not always come. I started nursing when I was 26 years old. I was young, determined. I believed that saving lives was the highest purpose a person could have, and in many ways, I still believe that. But ambition has a shadow side that nobody warns you about. I chased promotions. I took extra shifts. I missed dinners. I missed birthdays. I told myself it was sacrifice. I told myself my family understood. I told myself that once things settled down, once I reached the next milestone, the next position, the next level of security, then I would slow down. Then I would be present. Then I would give them the time they deserved. Later. Always later. My daughter once drew me a picture when she was 6 years old. A woman in a white uniform, standing very far away from a small girl with yellow hair. I put it on the refrigerator, and I cried for 5 minutes. Then I went back to work. I told myself that is what good mothers do. They provide, they sacrifice, they build something solid so their children have a better life. And I was not entirely wrong, but I was not entirely right either. There was a patient I cared for in my late 30s, a retired school teacher, 71 years old, sharp mind, warm eyes. She had lived what looked from the outside like a full and beautiful life. But in her final days, she would hold my hand and repeat the same thing over and over. She would say, "I was always waiting for the right moment." I asked her once, "The right moment for what?" She looked at the ceiling for a long time. Then she said, "For everything." I smiled at her. I squeezed her hand. I told her she had lived a wonderful life. But inside something shifted, because I recognized what she was describing. I was living it myself, the waiting, the postponing, the invisible wall between where you are and where you keep telling yourself you will eventually be. I went home that night and sat with my husband at the kitchen table. We talked for 2 hours, really talked, not about schedules or bills or the children's school problems. We talked about us, about what we wanted, about what we were afraid of. It was the first real conversation we had shared in almost 3 years. 3 years. And we were living in the same house. I thought I had time to keep rebuilding what we were quietly losing. I was wrong. My husband's name was Gerald. He was a quiet man, patient in a way I never fully deserved. He made coffee every morning before I woke up. He left it on the counter without saying anything. Just the cup, just the warmth, just his way of saying, I am here. I see you. I love you without needing you to ask. I took that cup of coffee for 31 years, and I never once stopped long enough to understand what it meant. Gerald died on a Thursday morning in March, not slowly, not with warning, not in a hospital bed surrounded by machines where I could have held his hand the way I had held so many others. He was here, and then he was not. I remember standing in the hallway of our home that afternoon. The house was full of people, neighbors, family, colleagues bringing food in glass dishes covered with foil, and I stood in the middle of all of it feeling completely alone, not because no one was there, but because the one person I had always assumed would be there was gone, and I had spent 31 years assuming. That is the word that has never left me since that day. Assuming. I assumed we had more mornings. I assumed there would be a retirement where we would finally sit still together. I assumed that the love between us was so solid, so established, so understood, that it did not need to be spoken out loud very often. I was wrong. Love that is not expressed is love that is not felt. I know that now. In the weeks after Gerald died, I returned to work. People told me to take more time. I could not. The hospital was the only place where I knew how to function, where I had a role, where the grief had to wait outside the door because someone else needed me more. And that is when it happened. There was a man in room 7, 78 years old, former engineer, precise, logical. Not the kind of man who spoke about feelings easily. But one evening I came in to check on him, and he was weeping, quietly. The way men of that generation weep, as if they are ashamed of it. I sat down beside him. I did not say anything. I just stayed. After a long time, he looked at me and said, I spent my whole life solving problems. I was very good at it. But I never learned how to just sit with the people I loved. I was always fixing something, always moving. I thought that was how you showed love, through doing. He paused. Then he said, but they didn't need me to fix anything. They just needed me to stay. I could not speak, because Gerald had needed the same thing from me, and I had spent 31 years fixing, doing, moving, building, when all he had ever needed was for me to stay. I walked out of that room and stood in the corridor, and I finally, after 50 years of holding other people together, I finally broke. Not with noise, not dramatically, just quietly. The way truth arrives when you have been avoiding it for too long. Later never came for Gerald, and I had not been ready. I want to tell you something that took me 50 years to understand. We lie to ourselves every single day, not with big dramatic lies, not the kind you recognize easily, small ones, comfortable ones, the kind that feel like wisdom when you say them out loud. I will rest when things slow down. I will call them when I have more time. I will say, I love you, when the moment feels right. I will be present tomorrow, next week, next year, when life gets easier, when the pressure lifts, when I finally feel ready. We say these things as if time is something we can negotiate with. It is not. I have stood at the bedside of professors and laborers, of wealthy men and women who owned more than they could ever use, of people who had achieved everything the world told them to chase, and people who had lived quietly, simply, without ever seeking recognition. And I want to tell you what I never once heard at the end. I never heard anyone say, I wish I had worked more. I never heard anyone say, I wish I had spent more time being angry at the people I loved. I never heard anyone say, I wish I had worried more. compared myself more, chased more things that didn't matter, not once, not in 50 years. What I heard over and over and over again were different words entirely. I wish I had stayed. I wish I had listened. I wish I had said it out loud. I wish I had forgiven sooner. I wish I had allowed myself to be loved without feeling like I needed to earn it first. These were not the words of people who had failed at life. These were the words of people who had succeeded at all the wrong things. And here is the truth that broke me open completely. Most of us are building a life we keep planning to actually live later. We are saving the good dishes for special occasions that never come. We are waiting until we feel worthy enough to rest. We are performing busyness like it is proof of our value. We are moving so fast through our own existence that we arrive at the end surprised, genuinely surprised, that it is already over. I did this. I thought I had time. I was wrong. I thought love was something you could put on hold and return to when your schedule cleared. Later never came. I thought presence was a luxury, something you earned after the real work was done. But presence was the work. It was always the work. The nurse in me spent decades treating the body, monitoring the heart rate, managing the pain, keeping the physical machine running as long as possible. But what I saw in those final moments, what I felt in those hands as they held mine for the last time, had nothing to do with the body. It was always about connection, whether they felt known by the people they loved, whether they had allowed themselves to be truly seen, whether the life they lived matched the life they had somewhere deep inside always meant to live. That is the only question that seems to matter at the end. Not what you accomplished, not what you owned, not what people thought of you from a distance, but did you show up, really show up, for the moments and the people that were right in front of you? I know what most people will find when they ask themselves that question honestly, because I found the same thing, a life half-lived while waiting to fully begin. Don't make my mistake. I am 82 years old. I do not say that for sympathy. I say it because I want you to understand that I am standing at the place you are walking toward. I can see what is ahead. And I am turning around to tell you, with everything I have left, please pay attention to your life while you are still inside it. Not tomorrow. Now. Because here is what nobody prepares you for. The end does not feel like the end until it is very close. You will not receive a letter. You will not hear an alarm. There will be no obvious moment where life taps you on the shoulder and says, "This is your final warning. Use your time wisely. It will just keep moving, quietly, steadily. And one morning you will wake up and the years will be behind you like a road you traveled too fast to remember clearly. And the question will sit in the room with you. Did I live, or did I just survive?" I have seen both kinds of people reach the end. The ones who lived with presence, who loved imperfectly but openly, who forgave even when it was difficult, who stayed even when leaving felt easier. They did not all die without pain. Life does not promise that. But they died with a quietness inside them, a settledness, like a person who had finished something that mattered. And then there were the others, the ones who had waited, who had planned to begin living after one more achievement, after one more problem was solved, after life finally cooperated with the version they had always imagined. They did not die with quietness. They died with their hands gripping the sheets, still holding on, still not ready, because they had not finished, not because their lives were failures, but because they had never truly started living the life that was actually theirs. I was almost one of them. After Gerald died, I made a decision. I decided that whatever time remained, I would not perform it. I would not manage it or optimize it or spend it becoming something more impressive. I would simply be inside it, fully, honestly, without waiting for permission. I called my daughter. We talked for 3 hours. I sat in the garden Gerald had planted, and I let myself feel how much I missed him without trying to move past it quickly. I told people I loved them, out loud, without waiting for the right moment, because there is no right moment. There is only this moment, and then the next one, and then one day. There are no more. So I am asking you, not as a nurse, not as someone with authority or credentials or years of professional experience. I am asking you as a human being who almost missed her own life. Look at the people around you today. Really look at them. Say the thing you have been meaning to say. Make the call you have been putting off. Forgive the person you are exhausted from being angry at. Not because life is short, you have heard that before, and it has not changed anything, but because the moment you are in right now is real, and the version of your life you keep planning to live later, that version is not guaranteed. I thought I had time. I was wrong. Later never came. Don't make my mistake.